I'm Mugza Khan, and I'll be your host for today. This past semester, we have discussed topics ranging from gun control to the Me Too movement to race. Today is our final show in our series of awakenings and Our Time shows. With us are a community of scholars, including students, staff, and faculty from Stony Brook University. For our first show, we will be focused on policy. So, what policies are you guys most concerned about? We'll start off with Professor Paul Bingham.
So I would lump two major policy areas where government is currently not doing what it needs to do. One is investment, so that's infrastructure, that's education, that's research. They're not doing what they need to do. The other, of course, is bringing climate change under control. That's in danger of overwhelming us. So I would like to see the new Congress act on both those general areas.
Michelle, would you like to speak?
Sure. We're a different generation, of course, than you guys, so we have different concerns since we'll be around in 50 years. I'm sorry. But I think we're definitely concerned about climate change because, you know, there are reports coming out that in 30 years, if we don't do anything, that it's irreversible damage. But we're also concerned about, well, for me, gun control. It's a shame what's happening in schools these days. Children are scared to go to school. My cousins, I'm worried for them, and I think things need to be done, and things are definitely not being done for them.
Would any of the other students like to talk? Elodie? Claudio?
Yeah, just to add on that, that's an important topic. I feel like just something as simple as, like, I've always wanted just to, for fun, go to the movies with my brother, right? Something that we do. And then you just have to you have to be aware now. You can't be like, oh, I'm just going to watch a movie. You have to be aware of your surroundings and stuff like that. And it's sad because it's something that should be enjoyed, and then, you know, we have to be constantly worried about these things.
Thank you. I have a younger brother, so I was even telling him, like, when I went for Thanksgiving break, like, for him not to come home late because it's not safe. And, you know, being a black man being a black man in America, it's like they have to be extra cautious of their surroundings, not to cause too much attention on themselves. So I always, like, remind him of this, like, of that circumstance. It is scary though, so.
If there's one thing that you could tell our president, senators, and our congressmen, what would it be? And this can go to anyone.
I'll just say something quick. I think we should all tell them that you aren't serving your people. You aren't serving the majority of your people. You're serving yourself. You're being selfish. Look back in history and look what your regime is doing. Look what your kind of regime is doing, all the hatred you're causing, and just see your effect. Because I don't recognize America anymore, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I think in our second segment that we'll do in a few minutes, we're going to talk about our politics and how it got broken and why it's broken. But this pertains to that. I mean, I think coming back to the policy issues that we're talking about right now, I think you guys raised one that living in a privileged environment, I don't think so much about, right? Gun control. I'm not as vulnerable as people living in places in the city, for example, are to these kinds of things. But I think it's really striking the recent war of words between the American Medical Association and the NRA. The NRA is telling the American Medical Association to stay in its lane. In other words, it's none of your business. And the AMA is saying, no, it's precisely our business because we treat the victims of gun violence. And you could even argue that it's the NRA that's out of its lane, right? That this is a public health problem. The NRA are like the tobacco lobby. That is, they're advocates for a toxic health threat, and they're arguing that the rest of us should be listening to what they say instead of what health professionals say. So I think it's really interesting whether this can be approached as a public health problem that can be dealt with that way.
Well, all of these subjects are of interest to me, and all of them are very important in my opinion, but if we don't get a handle on climate change, the rest of it isn't going to make any difference. So I think we really have to get Congress working on it because it looks like the president will not.
I want to branch out a little bit from this discussion. I agree with all of the concerns that have been raised, but I think that if there were one message I could give and one change I could make, it would be a change in the way that politics is financed. Because right now, that's who the politicians are answering to. They are answering to those who pay for their campaigns, who maintain their power. And I think we all need to be reminded that this is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Not just the people who have big checkbooks, the billionaires who can push their agendas. We need to think big picture, and the politicians need to remember the origins and think about the future.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are some promising signs, as in Obama's campaign, where he raised a lot of small donations. Bernie Sanders also. So if things move in that direction, I think there's more hope.
I'd be interested in Helmut's opinion about big money in politics.
Well, you mentioned Obama. He was a very prodigious fundraiser, and I think as a result of that, he junked a system that we had that was very promising to get money under control in elections, and that was the public financing of campaigns. He was the first Democrat to decline that option, and I think with that and Republicans having declined it before, it's pretty much dead. But that was a real promising avenue that unfortunately has been abandoned to get public financing of campaigns. I think the problem was that campaigns got so much more expensive, and the money supplied was not good enough. That Obama had so much money, he didn't know what to do with it. I mean, the public subsidy would have been a pittance. So he was almost too good in raising money individually. So yes, sort of a double-edged sword. I would add a whole different kind of a perspective to policy, and that is the international situation. I think we live in a world where, especially in the Middle East, I think it's a bunch of powder kegs waiting to explode. I mean, we don't hear much from Syria anymore, but the civil war is still ongoing. Iraq is sort of in a state of being stabilized. Pakistan is a source of a lot of tension and friction. Israel and the Palestinians. I mean, there's so many possibilities of the world sort of blowing up before we do anything else. And somehow, our president is, and well, no, the Congress has a chance maybe to weigh in a little bit more, but the Democrats in control. So I hope that they're going to do something there.
And along those lines, we've been known as world leaders, and we're losing that status now. And one of the important issues that are policy issues that have negated a lot of our goodwill from other countries is our policy on immigration. You all are either first time in the United States or second generation, but you know that our whole country is built on immigrants and what immigrants have contributed. And by going against that and rescinding our years and years of policy and welcoming immigrants into our country, we're setting a bad precedent. So I think it would be important for our Congress to act on that. That's right now an emergency situation on our southern border. And I wondered what you thought about the situation on the Mexican border right now.
So, Lexi, would you like to speak about immigration?
Honestly, my opinion about the entire situation with immigration within America now, I feel like, for me personally, what it comes down to is that I don't feel comfortable here. I understand that I'm from a different, culture, different background, different society, but at the end of the day, diversity is what, builds the world, is what brings people together more, because
if you're in a room full of people and there's 10 of us and we're all the same, that's boring. Like, nobody wants to do that. It's not interesting. But the way how politics like frame immigrants is like we're like a threat, basically, when as you said before, like the country is built on immigrants. And I feel like what's going on with Mexicans, like I mean in Mexico, is just ridiculous in my opinion. They're treating us like we're animals, they're any different from human beings, and we are just human beings. We're just not flesh-born Americans. Like, we're just from different places. And I feel like until they learn how to accept us and change all these policies that they have against us, like with the whole like the ICE and stuff like that, it's like we always have to be on our 10 toes. We always have to look out. Oh my gosh, like if my aunt wants to come from Jamaica, let's say, and she doesn't have her right papers and stuff like that, she has to worry about getting kicked out like tomorrow or later today. Stuff like that, just like, it's just very unsettling for me. And being in college right now, like I see it a lot. Yeah, I see it even more. So I would just like stuff like that to change.
Do you feel this is something that's changing over the last few years, or was that your experience throughout your life?
Well, I'm 19 now, and I came here when I was around 9. So I've been here for like 10 years. So for me personally, I didn't like the fact of coming here because I had to leave my mom in Jamaica. So I never 100% accepted, okay, yeah, this is my home. I still don't really accept it. If you told me like tomorrow I could go back to Jamaica, like I would go back without hesitation. But it's just like the economic system there is like bad, so I might stay. But like I feel like it has changed over the years, yeah. Because I feel like I felt more like accepted by my community before when I was younger. And now with this new president, and he's just ridiculous. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So I just feel like it's getting worse than better.
Thank you so much. We will move on to our next segment where we will talk about how our policy system got so broken.